Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. The room was buzzing with conversation, the sound of clinking glasses blending with soft jazz playing over the speakers. The annual office holiday party was in full swing, and for the first time in years, I had allowed myself to relax a little. I wasn't one to indulge in office gossip or linger around the break room too long. As a 49-year-old woman working in corporate finance, I had learned to keep a healthy distance from workplace drama. But tonight felt different. Maybe it was the way the golden fairy lights reflected off the glass windows, casting a warm glow over the room. Or perhaps it was the champagne that had started to settle in my veins, loosening my usual restraint. I adjusted the sleeve of my emerald green dress, a rare departure from my usual business suits, and glanced around the room. Most of my colleagues were deep in conversation, laughing over inside jokes or sharing holiday plans. Then my eyes landed on him. Daniel Carter, my boss. Tall, composed, and effortlessly charming, he had a way of commanding attention without trying. At 56, he carried himself with an air of confidence that never felt forced. There was something about him that made people listen when he spoke, not just because he was the CEO, but because he had a way of making everyone feel seen. We had always had a professional relationship, respectful but distant. I had worked under him for nearly a decade, but aside from the occasional work-related conversation, our interactions had been limited. That's why I was taken aback when he caught my gaze from across the room and started walking toward me. "Enjoying yourself?" he asked, his voice smooth but casual. I smiled, lifting my glass. "Trying to. You don't strike me as the office party type either." He chuckled, taking a sip from his drink. "You're right. I usually make an appearance and slip out before anyone notices. But this year feels different." I tilted my head. "How so?" Daniel hesitated for a moment, then leaned in slightly, lowering his voice just enough that it felt like a secret. "There's something I've been meaning to tell you." I blinked, caught off guard. "What is it?" He exhaled, a soft smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Not here." A flicker of something passed between us, an unspoken tension I hadn't expected. My heart skipped, not out of fear, but anticipation. Before I could respond, someone called his name, and just like that, the moment passed. He gave me a lingering glance before excusing himself, leaving me standing there, replaying his words in my head. Not here. What was he trying to tell me? The night continued, but my thoughts kept circling back to Daniel's words. Every time our eyes met across the room, I felt the weight of something unspoken between us. By the time I grabbed my coat, ready to leave, I felt a hand gently touch my elbow. I turned to find Daniel standing behind me. "Do you have a moment?" he asked. I hesitated but nodded. "Of course." He gestured toward the balcony. The cold December air hit my skin as we stepped outside, but I barely noticed. "I didn't mean to be cryptic earlier," he said, his tone softer now. "I just wanted to find the right moment." I wrapped my arms around myself, curiosity brimming. "All right, I'm listening." Daniel ran a hand through his graying hair, exhaling as if gathering his thoughts. Then he looked at me, not as my boss, but as a man who had something personal to say. "For years, I've admired you. Not just your work, but you. The way you carry yourself, the way you handle everything with such grace. I never said anything because, well, I didn't think it was my place." A quiet hum filled the space between us. The city lights shimmered in the distance, but I couldn't focus on anything except the man standing in front of me. "Daniel," I started, unsure of what to say. "You don't have to say anything," he interrupted gently. "I just needed you to know." And just like that, everything shifted. I stood there on the balcony, the crisp winter air brushing against my skin, but all I could feel was the warmth of his words lingering in the space between us. Daniel Carter, my boss, the man I had admired for years, had just admitted he saw me as more than just an employee, more than a colleague. I swallowed hard, my heart hammering in my chest. "Daniel," I finally managed, my voice softer than I intended. "I don't know what to say." A small smile played at his lips, but there was a nervous edge to it. "You don't have to say anything. I didn't tell you to put you in an uncomfortable position. I just couldn't let another year pass without being honest." Honest. That word echoed in my mind. When was the last time I had been truly honest with myself? For the past few years, I had poured everything into my career, always the dedicated professional, always composed. But standing here now, I felt something unravel, a quiet realization creeping in. I had noticed Daniel before. Of course I had. He wasn't just a powerful man. He was kind, intelligent, and carried himself with a quiet confidence that drew people in. I had dismissed my own thoughts, convincing myself they were fleeting, insignificant. But were they? I exhaled, trying to steady my nerves. I don't know if I ever allowed myself to think about this. His expression softened. "I understand." The air between us felt charged, an unfamiliar tension that wasn't uncomfortable, but heavy with possibility. I glanced back through the glass doors into the ballroom. People were still laughing, drinking, oblivious to the moment unfolding just outside. Then I looked back at Daniel. "Why now?" I asked, genuinely curious. He hesitated, then sighed. "Because I've spent years convincing myself that timing mattered, that I had to keep a distance, that the professional boundary was more important than what I felt. But tonight, I just couldn't ignore it anymore." Something about his words struck deep, shaking loose a part of me that had been dormant for too long. A soft gust of wind swept across the balcony, making me shiver slightly. Without thinking, Daniel shrugged off his coat and draped it over my shoulders. It was such a simple, instinctive gesture, but the warmth of it, of him, settled around me in a way I hadn't expected. "I don't want to complicate your life," he added, his voice quieter now. "I just needed you to know." I met his gaze, searching for any hesitation, any sign that he regretted saying what he did. But there was none, only sincerity. And then, before I could second-guess myself, I smiled. "I think I'd like to figure out what this means." His eyes flickered with something, relief, maybe, or hope. "Then let's figure it out," he murmured. The moment stretched, filled with an unspoken understanding. This wasn't just about attraction. It was about something deeper. A connection neither of us had been willing to acknowledge until now. Before we could say anything else, the balcony doors swung open. "There you two are." We turned quickly to see Amanda, one of the senior managers, stepping outside with a tipsy grin. "We're about to do the toast. Can't have the boss missing his own speech." Daniel glanced at me, something unreadable in his eyes. "We should go back in," I said, adjusting his coat around my shoulders. He nodded, but as we stepped back inside, I could feel the shift. Nothing between us would ever be the same. The warmth of Daniel's coat still lingered around my shoulders as we stepped back into the ballroom, but the air between us had undeniably changed. We returned to the party as if nothing had happened, him taking his place near the front of the room, while I blended back into the crowd. But I could still feel it. the weight of his words, the unspoken understanding that had passed between us on that balcony. As he raised his glass to give the annual toast, I found myself studying him in a way I never had before. The way he carried himself with effortless confidence. The way his deep voice commanded attention. But now, I wasn't just seeing him as my boss. I was seeing him as a man. "To another year of success," Daniel said, lifting his glass, "and to the incredible people who make it possible." Everyone clapped, glasses clinking, laughter rippling through the room. But when his eyes briefly met mine over the rim of his glass, I knew it wasn't just a generic speech. It was something more. I swallowed hard, looking away as I took a sip of my champagne. I needed air. Excusing myself, I slipped past the crowd and made my way to the hallway near the coat check. The music was muffled here, the chatter distant. I leaned against the wall, taking a slow breath. This wasn't supposed to happen. For years, I had kept my personal and professional lives separate. I had built a reputation as someone who was composed, focused, unshakable. But one whispered confession on a cold December night, and suddenly I wasn't so sure of myself anymore. Thinking about sneaking out, the deep voice startled me, and I turned to find Daniel standing a few feet away, hands in his pockets. I let out a breathless chuckle. Maybe. He took a step closer, his gaze searching mine. "Did I make things complicated for you?" I considered that for a moment. "I don't know yet." He nodded, as if he understood. "I meant what I said, you know." I glanced down at the polished floor, my fingers tightening around my clutch. "I know." There was a beat of silence before he spoke again. "I don't expect an answer right now. He exhaled, shaking his head slightly. "I just don't want to pretend anymore." His honesty made something stir deep inside me. I met his gaze again. "Neither do I." His expression softened, as if he hadn't been expecting that answer. "I should go," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure why. He didn't try to stop me, but as I turned to leave, he gently reached for my hand. It wasn't a bold move, just a quiet touch, a simple connection. "Let me call you tomorrow?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated only for a moment before nodding. "Okay." I slipped my hand away, my heart pounding as I walked toward the exit. But as I stepped out into the cold night air, I knew this was only the beginning. The next day, I woke up feeling different. Lighter. Like something that had been locked away inside me for years had finally been acknowledged. I spent the morning pacing my apartment, replaying every detail of the night before. The words spoken on the balcony, the way Daniel had looked at me, the quiet moment in the hallway when he had reached for my hand. And then there was his final question. "Let me call you tomorrow." I had said yes. But now, standing in my kitchen, staring at my phone, I felt a mixture of anticipation and uncertainty. Was I really ready for this? A part of me still hesitated. Not because I didn't want to see where this could go, but because it had been so long since I had let myself feel something like this. Something real. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. "Daniel." I took a steadying breath before answering. "Hello." His voice was warm, steady. I wasn't sure if he'd pick up. I smiled slightly, leaning against the counter. Neither was I. He chuckled softly. "Fair enough." For a moment, neither of us spoke. But the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of quiet understanding. Finally, he cleared his throat. "I don't want to pressure you into anything, but would you like to have dinner with me tonight? Somewhere quiet. No office, no titles, just us. I hesitated, but only for a second. I'd like that. That evening, I found myself at a small, intimate restaurant tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. Candlelight flickered on the white tablecloths, the low hum of conversation filling the space. Daniel was already there when I arrived, standing to greet me. "You came," he said, a hint of relief in his voice. I smiled as he pulled out my chair. I did. As the night unfolded, something unexpected happened. We talked. Not about work, not about office deadlines or board meetings, but about life. About the books we loved, the places we wanted to visit, the little things that made us laugh. And with each passing moment, I felt myself unraveling in the best possible way. By the time the check arrived, I knew. This wasn't just curiosity. It was something real. As we stepped outside into the cool night air, Daniel hesitated. "I know this is new, and I don't want to rush anything. But I also don't want to pretend that this isn't happening." I turned to face him, my heart steady now. "Neither do I." His expression softened, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that I hadn't noticed before. Not just admiration, but hope. And as he reached for my hand, lacing his fingers through mine, I realized something. Sometimes the most unexpected moments in life aren't just surprising. They're exactly what we've been waiting for all along.